Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
Joan Esposito.
Y'all ready for this?
On WCPT 820.
Hello, thank you for being here this Friday, December 20th. For many people, myself included, and a lot of the political reporters I read, this will be the last day of work till after the holidays. Shia Kapos, Illinois Playbook, going to be off till January 6th, and some other publications. So you know what? Sounds like a perfect time to just relax and listen to the radio. I will be back. This is my last day. I will also be back Monday, January 6th. I'm going to try to have the vacation I didn't get at Thanksgiving. I'm going to try desperately not to get COVID again. You know, you got to keep your goals achievable. I think that's achievable. I hope you have great plans. It is Friday. We are going to take the first half of the show to talk about the news of the day. Couple of fun things planned for a little bit later. We're going to talk to new chef owner of the Chopping Block, Lisa Counts. We're going to talk to our good friend, Tony Fitzpatrick, who has a new studio, and he is making friends with every dog in the neighborhood. But first, let's get to it. 773-763-9278. I'm going to kind of do right now my version of, Rich Eberwein's here on Tuesday, the stories you might have missed. Well, you may or may not know a tech reporter by the name of Kara Swisher. She does one of the most popular podcasts in the world. She was the Wall Street Journal tech reporter back when Silicon Valley and all that was just getting off the ground. She literally knew all of these people, Musk, Bezos, when they were just starting out, when they were nobodies, when they were desperate to get her attention, any attention. Kara Swisher left the Wall Street Journal a while ago. She's been kind of doing her own thing. She is trying to put together a group of investors to buy the Washington Post. And I think that is a great idea. She said, the article that I read in the Daily Beast said that there's no indication. I mean, Jeff Bezos hasn't said that he's really looking to sell, but it has been such a thorn in his side recently with all of the staff rebellion, because the guy he put in charge is one of those guys from the United Kingdom that, well, he's actually going to have to leave to go back to the UK because he's going to be testifying in a trial that Prince Harry brought about, there was that big scandal in the United Kingdom about certain news outlets that were tapping phones very illegally, especially of the royal family. Well, after that scandal came to light, the guy who's currently leading the Washington Post was hired to do damage control. And in his lawsuit, Prince Harry is accusing him of an illegal cover-up. There have been, they're not, it's the United Kingdom. They're the equivalent of federal authorities there, have said publicly that they believe that this guy lied to them repeatedly as they were trying to investigate this phone tapping scandal. Fine human being. Plus, Jeff Bezos wouldn't let them run the editorial they had written endorsing Kamala Harris. Then Jeff Bezos ran down to Mar-a-Lago and wrote Donald Trump $1 million check for his inauguration. So, the people who work at the Washington Post have been very unhappy, and they have lost like 250,000 of their subscribers since it became public that Jeff Bezos wasn't letting them run that endorsement and then was sucking up to Trump. And whether or not you think as the head of a big company, that's something that he needed to do to make sure his company was successful. There's been, the Washington Post has not been the crown that he thought it would be. So, you know what? If Kara Swisher can get together, and here's another thing. It's so weird that it just was posted today that she's trying to do this, because I said to Ray last night, MSNBC and, CNBC, they're all being spun off. In other words, they're going to be sold. The parent company, Comcast, is going to keep Peacock, NBC News, and Bravo. Pretty much everything else is going to be spun off. I think Rachel Maddow should go to a very high-profile agent, Ari Emanuel, and say, Ari, we need to put together a group of investors to buy MSNBC. Oprah owned her own channel. I don't know if she still does, I assume. First, she went in with Gloria Steinem and Jane Fonda, and they created a feminist channel. And then Oprah was like, hey, I got more money than God. I can do one of these on my own. And that's when she created OWN, Oprah Winfrey Network. If Oprah can do it, I bet Rachel could do it. Because, there's a lot of fear that really the only somewhat left-leaning cable television station could be purchased by a right-winger. What are we going to do if Elon Musk buys MSNBC? Oh, we can, a lot of our favorite people, we can kiss them goodbye. Even, frankly, this company that Comcast spun off, which is creatively called Spin Company, the guy who is in charge of that, he's got all the little orphan channels that they want to get rid of. He has said, we really ought to have more Republicans on MSNBC. We got to have more Republican voices. Love him or hate him, and I know a lot of people are really torn about Keith Olbermann. Keith Olbermann was an MSNBC anchor for 9 years. Keith Olbermann has been fired from every job he ever had. He's difficult to work with by his own admission. But, he wrote an article for Variety recently. It was on their digital page, variety.com. And he said, look, you guys have potentially have a corner on the market. Obviously there's Fox, Newsmax, OANN. They're doing the far right thing. CNN is struggling to try to find some kind of just the facts middle ground. MSNBC, if they become a Democratic voice, a liberal voice, they'll have the corner on the market. It's an incredible opportunity. Instead, the guy in charge is like, well, maybe we ought to make it more Republican. Like him or hate him, I think Keith Olbermann has a point. So good luck, Kara Swisher. I hope you can put together a group of investors that buys the Washington Post, and I hope Rachel Maddow can put together a group of investors that buys MSNBC. We need more liberal voices, not fewer. Let's go back to the big story of the day, which is, of course, the government shutdown that Mike Johnson is promising is not going to happen. Yeah, we had a plan negotiated, and Elon Musk shot it down. And then we came up with another plan, and nobody liked it, and everybody, even Republicans and Democrats, shot it down. But we're not going to have a government shutdown. Yes, the vote is supposed to take place before midnight tonight, and we're working really hard to find something that just makes everybody happy. Good luck, Mike Johnson. Good luck, Mike Johnson. Jasmine Crockett, that our favorite congresswoman From Texas, Jasmine Crockett was on with Alex Wagner, and she was talking about the situation that is currently going on in the Congress as they do what they can to create some kind of budget. And for the whole interview was fascinating and funny, but I want to play this one clip for you where, you know, the Republicans have a majority, but they have such a slim majority. They cannot pass a budget without Democratic votes. They can't. In the words of Jasmine Crockett, there is no fix in this without the Democrats. No fix. Listen to Jasmine Crockett.
What is happening in the House of Representatives? This was supposed to be just, a pro forma exercise. They're going to pass this year, and it has turned into an utter debacle with people openly calling for Speaker Johnson to be thrown out of the Speaker's office. How are Democrats looking at this?
Listen, we're looking at this like this is their problem. We have seen this play out over and over in the entire 2 years that I've been in Congress. We know that they had a problem picking a speaker when I first got to Congress, and I thought since they held on to the speaker a little bit longer than they held on to McCarthy, that I could go into January knowing that Mike Johnson would be the speaker, but now they're calling for his ouster. And remember, this is not like one of the most senior members, right? So basically, he had not burned enough bridges, and so they had to go way, way down in seniority to find someone that they could come to a consensus on. When they swear in January, or when we all try to swear in January, listen, there's going to be less Republicans than we had in the 118th, right? Because the story has not really been told about how strongly House Democrats performed while the Republicans won the White House, while they ended up picking up so many seats in the Senate. You know who lost seats? The House, right? Now, should we have a Speaker Jeffries? Absolutely. If North Carolina didn't cheat and take away our seats, we would have a Speaker Jeffries, and we would not be in this situation. But here's the deal. There is no fix in this without the Democrats. We have seen this over and over, and I'm just going to sit back and sip my tea and wait on them to figure it out.
Yes, our good friend Jasmine Crockett. Going to sit back and let them figure it out. Hakeem Jeffries was also talking about the deal that came together and fell apart. He was talking at the Capitol last night. And, listen to what Hakeem Jeffries had to say.
Good evening, everyone. House Republicans, House Democrats, Senate Republicans, and Senate Democrats reached a bipartisan agreement to fund the government, keep it open, and meet the needs of the American people. We reached a bipartisan agreement to provide disaster assistance to everyday Americans whose lives have been upended and turned upside down as a result of hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, floods, and other types of extreme weather events. We reached a bipartisan agreement to meet the needs of the American people and provide assistance to farmers, families, children, seniors, veterans, men and women in uniform, and working class Americans. House Republicans have now unilaterally decided to break a bipartisan agreement that they made. House Republicans have been ordered to shut down the government and hurt everyday Americans all across this country. House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse. An agreement is an agreement. It was bipartisan. and there is nothing more to say.
I told you Mike Johnson says that there's a plan C. You know, A didn't work, B didn't work. There's supposed to be a plan C. And what threw a monkey wrench into the works was Donald Trump's demand that the debt ceiling either be raised or completely done away with. And that was the demand, and that was put into the next bill, but I don't know whether they thought Democrats wouldn't read it. They took a bunch of stuff out of the bill. They didn't just add the debt ceiling language Trump wanted. They took a bunch of stuff out, like there was like $190 million for childhood cancer research. I mean, they took a bunch of other stuff, that the kind of stuff that matters to people and the kind of stuff, honestly, that's pretty popular, they took that out. So Democrats were like, hell no. And some of the Tea Party, far right Republicans in Congress who are rabid about the debt ceiling, they said no. So in addition to the Democrats, there were like 38 Republicans that voted this second Plan B budget down. Now, the Washington Post is reporting that Plan C is apparently in the works. And guess what? There's no debt limit, debt ceiling language in it, according to the Washington Post. You know what? We've seen these kinds of things before when Trump was in office, especially fights over the budget. There will be a bipartisan negotiated budget. Donald Trump will not like it, say it doesn't do this or it doesn't do that, and he will kill it. And after much angst and negotiation, they end up passing a bill that is almost exactly like the one they started with. In some cases, exactly like the one they started with. So, looks like the debt limit demand is not going to be a part of the new budget. And I know that the Democrats are not going to sit by and let them cut the stuff that matters to people. And you know why Trump wanted the debt limit raised? Because the one thing that he can do, that he has the votes for, is to get through the House and the Senate another one of those big tax cuts for billionaires. But that's going to drive the deficit up by trillions of dollars. So he was hoping that he could get the debt limit raised right now so that as soon as he takes office, he could push through that tax cut. He'll still be able to do it, but without a rise in the debt limit. It's going to take him a little longer. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to do. Politics. Oh, politics. Let's go to the phone lines. Our good friend Jim from Chicago is on the line. Hello, Jim. How are you?
Joan, I just hope you have an uneventful vacation for the first time since I've been listening to your radio show.
I hope so, too.
You come back January 6th in good shape. What I was thinking about this morning is the history of the Republican Party. First of all, they're the Whigs in deference to the Democratic Party, which is about 1824, I think, with Jackson. And then they go to the know-nothings who despise the Irish. They absolutely despise the Irish, and that made the Irish reliable Democrats for a good part of the century, for decades. But the Republic now it's the MAGA Party. It's no longer the Republican Party; it's the MAGA Party, and it doesn't stand for magnanimous, Joe. It certainly doesn't stand for that. And what I get a kick out of is this flood the money. I remember Nixon's speech about checkers, and his wife had a good Republican woman with a cloth coat, not a fur coat, a cloth coat, appealing to the average worker. And it's Christmas time, and all I can think of is our Lord when he said, it's harder for a rich man to enter heaven than it is for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle. And these are supposed to be Christian. This is our Christian religion, this party. I mean, they're giving us their Mike Johnson, Trump with his Bible.
They call themselves Christian, but they have no resemblance to Christianity.
Well, because that's all. But this is an assembly of billionaires with no scientific input in this cabinet, no academic input in this cabinet. All these trillionaires. Well, they're headed to trillions. But the point is, you would have guessed that 3/5 of the country is just going check to check. And they don't even describe that. They're going to tell us that Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security and all these things are just nonsense. You don't need them. And it's incredible. It's incredible, but I don't think they'll get away with it. But anyway, Joan, you have a great vacation, and it'll be good to hear you on January 6th. And thank you very much, dear. Thank you.
Thank you. It's going to be interesting to see what I sound like when I'm, relaxed. And even though I got to tell you, with the kind of 4 years we're facing, I might not be all that relaxed. I don't know. We'll see. Steve from the Gold Coast is on the line. Let's talk to you, Steve. How are you today?
Well, actually, you beat me to the point already. And this whole debt ceiling thing, it's a ploy. Basically, Trump wants to push that back so that we don't have a debt ceiling limit until 2029. Gee, I wonder what happens in 2029. He's no longer president. So as you pointed out, what they want is to be able to offer tax cuts to corporations and billionaires. And then, of course, this whole notion of, well, we're going to find a way to slash spending everywhere. The problem being that, where are you going to cut it? Because as soon as you start to talk about it, because one person's waste is somebody else's, bread and butter. So it's easy to say if you're in New York, hey, there's a lot of pork that's going to Texas. We need to cut that. Or if you're in Texas, it's easy to say we need to cut a lot of the spending that's going to California. But nobody wants to cut it in their state.
Right.
So what you're left with is promises that you're going to cut, which never happen. And, Republicans just sort of forget about the national debt when they're in office, when they're in power. It's not until they return to being out of power that all of a sudden it's a crisis. Oh, my God, the national debt. What are we going to do? So this echoes that sort of thing. And Donald Trump cannot, therefore, have this problem as far as the national debt ceiling coming up every so often, because it's going to beg the question, well, wait a minute. You were the guy who promised us that we were going to cut our way out of all of this tremendous spending, and we weren't going to have these problems because government was going to be cut.
Exactly. So that's why they can't give it to him now. Democrats can't agree to that. They need to hold his feet to the fire.
Exactly. And they need to let American voters recognize that, you know what, hey, this guy promised you he was going to deliver on this. Guess what? Just like everything else he's ever claimed he was going to deliver on, we were going to be winning so much. Oh, you were going to get great health care for a fraction of what you pay currently, and oil prices and food prices are going to come down. None of those things happen. It didn't happen in the first administration in terms of all the promises he made. They're not going to happen this time around. But he needs cover. And that's what this is meant to provide. So as long as the national debt, the economists will talk about it and say, well, hey, it keeps going up. It's starting to worry us. But there's not going to be any point at which there would be a shutdown, which is what Donald Trump wants. There's not going to be a debate. There's not going to be a crisis. There's not going to be a day like today where we're talking about a deal has to be cut during his presidency. And he hopes that low-information voters just sort of go with that and say, hey, you know what? That never happened when Trump was president. He must have done a good job and balanced the budget or who knows what. And that's what he wants his voters to think. As long as nobody tells you have cancer, you don't have cancer, which is ridiculous.
Steve, thank you so much for the call. Have a great holiday. We are going to continue to have the phone lines open, 773-763-9278. We will take your calls and texts. In the very near future, we hope to be talking to Congressman Brad Schneider, if he can run out into the hallway while the budget is chaotically trying to be negotiated. And at some point, hopefully, he's going to call in and tell us what is actually going on Capitol Hill. Let's get to all that right after a break.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
As promised, we have Congressman Brad Schneider. He represents Illinois' 10th District. And today, I would imagine he is very busy on Capitol Hill. Brad, how are you?
I'm good, Joan. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. There was a report yesterday that Hakeem Jeffries told all you Democratic Congresspeople that you better be ready for a late night tonight. Are you ready for a late night tonight?
I'm ready for whatever comes. What I am disappointed, not expected. Last several months, the leaders of both parties in the House and the Senate have been working to craft a deal, negotiated a deal that would fund our government into next year, would address the needs of communities hit by natural disasters, would help our farmers, would invest in research in things, for example, like pediatric cancers. A lot of things that should have been done during the course of the year were included in a package that was negotiated and agreed to by all sides. And then Elon Musk decides that he's the new president of the United States, and Donald Trump follows him, and the Republicans walked away from something they'd agreed to before. That's what we should be voting on right now. If we voted on that 5 minutes from now, it would pass overwhelmingly. Unfortunately, that's not where we are, and we wait to see what plan B, C, or D is from Speaker Mike Johnson.
Mike, according to the Washington Post, Mike Johnson wants, I guess, to divide things up into at minimally 3 different bills, like the farm bill. All the farm funding would be a standalone bill. Is that something that Democrats would agree to?
Well, as I said before, we agreed to a package. Everyone agreed to a package, Republicans and Democrats. And what we've seen over the last couple of days is Mike Johnson negotiating with himself, saying, what about this, what about that, but not talking to Leader Jeffries and not negotiating in good faith. So those conversations may be happening now. We're waiting to see. But, to take what Speaker Johnson did yesterday was a maneuver that would have required a 2/3 vote to pass. Not only did he not get 2/3, he didn't get a simple majority. 38 Republicans joined with virtually all the Democrats to oppose the scheme he had crafted yesterday. And I'm not seeing anything much different yet today so far. We'll see what happens tonight.
I saw on cable news last night they replayed a far-right Republican congressperson, Chip Roy from Texas, when he was looking at the Republican side of the chamber and just screaming at them for this new bill that had all this debt limit increase that Trump apparently was demanding, and saying that it was asinine. And at one point, he paused and he got applause from the Democratic side of the House, which honestly only seemed to make him madder.
So I'll tell you, Chip Roy yelling at his Republican colleagues is not unusual. He does it quite a bit. He yells at the Democrats. He just likes to yell. But if you remember, earlier this year, maybe even last year, Chip Roy was screaming that the Republicans are in charge of the House and they haven't been able to get a single thing done. He was right then. And he was right last night when he was saying that the Republicans are trying to pull the wool over the American people's eyes. This package would result in a huge increase in our debt. Already, our debt is at record levels, and we need to be looking at ways to responsibly fund our government, fund the programs that will better people's lives, and not work to bend to the will of a billionaire, the world's richest man, who's looking only to add to his riches and control what the government does for his own benefit.
The Trump aides have been doing a bit of damage control today because Elon Musk, as you pointed out, or as I like to call him, President Musk, issued like 100 tweets, and he was like, this is a terrible budget. It's got to be voted down. Anybody who's not voted down, going to make sure that, they're primaried. And then it was like an hour or more later when Donald Trump was like, I want the debt ceiling raised. Yeah, that's what I want. Right. And everybody was saying that it was, it looked like there was President Elon Musk and then Vice President Donald Trump. And, his aides are trying to correct that impression today. But what did you think when Republicans looked at those Elon Musk social media posts and caved after doing their job and negotiating a bipartisan agreement?
Right. You're 100% right. Look, when I saw Elon Musk, I don't think of it as President Musk. I think it's Puppet Master Musk controlling the incoming president, doing his bidding. And what I saw of my Republican colleagues, too many of my Republican colleagues, is they caved and gave into it right away. The issue is no one elected Elon Musk to anything. Each of us, 435 members of Congress, represent roughly 700 to 750 people in our home districts. We understand the needs of the people in our districts. We're working together to try to advance the interests of the country. That would mean making sure that our farmers have what they need to get through another season, another year. The communities that are devastated by natural disasters are supported by a country that always comes to the aid of our neighbors in times of need. And what we're seeing, Elon Musk tweets, and the Republicans turn their back on our neighbors. It's just not acceptable.
When will we know something? I mean, if Mike Johnson is going to try to bring three or more separate bills for a vote, when will you know something? When will you know what's going on?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I've told my wife and family. We'll know when we know. The Republicans, keep throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping something sticks. We are now at a little bit after 3:30 on the last day before the government runs out of money. At midnight tonight, the government will shut down. Our men and women in uniform, service members around the country and around the world who are defending our national security or national interests are going to go without pay right before Christmas. Families who depend on Social Security and Medicare are going to be unclear what's going to be down the pike right before the holidays. Communities that desperately need this money to try to recover from storms and other natural disasters are going to be left holding the bag, all because Elon Musk and Donald Trump said, hey, I don't like this. It's not perfect. It's not exactly what I wanted. Well, in a compromise, we find common ground, but not everyone gets exactly what they wanted, and everyone needs to give a little, and that's what we should be doing right now.
How long, Brad, do you wait? I mean, I know that if it's like 1 minute till midnight and Hakeem Jeffries says, wait, I think we've got it here, then you could stick around for a vote. But what if midnight rolls around and you don't feel that there's any budget ready that's going to be ready in the very near future to vote on? Do you just all close up shop and go home?
No, I was in my office last night until we heard from the whip's office that the Republicans said no more votes yesterday. We reconvened today. The Democrats had another caucus meeting this morning and anticipate having another one at some point here. I'll stay here until the Republicans say, no, we didn't get it today, and then we'll be back tomorrow. And if they don't get it tomorrow or aren't willing to, like I said, the easiest thing to do, and it's so easy. There was an agreement that everyone embraced, everyone agreed to. The American people celebrated because it was going to make a difference in their lives, and the Republicans walked away from it. The door's still open. Walk back, and let's get it done.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't today supposed to be your last day in session?
Well, yesterday was supposed to be the last day in session.
Oh,
but,
you're already on overtime.
Yeah, so... Yeah, well, whatever time it takes, we're going to stay here until we can get it done for the American people.
Wow. And right now, what is your confidence level that there will be a budget deal before you leave? Would you say 50-50, 80-20? How are you feeling about this whole thing?
Well, I'm going to split it a little bit of pieces, and then we'll put it into a combined. So I have 100% confidence that my colleagues in the Democratic Party, that Leader Jeffries, are all committed to find a way to keep the government open and get a deal. We have that agreement. We all stand by that. And, if Speaker Johnson wants to reach out to Leader Jeffries, maybe they're talking right now. If there's a will, there's a way. I'm less confident on Speaker Johnson. He says he wants to get a deal. I'm not sure he has the ability to deliver a deal because he may have to negotiate and then hope that Donald Trump doesn't sink it. And I have zero confidence that Elon Musk is going to do what's in the best interest of the American people. He's always going to do what he thinks in his own personal interest. So given all of that dynamic, I'm probably 50-50.
Do you have a bed in your office?
Fortunately, I have an apartment here in Washington, so I'm okay. I did tell one of my colleagues who doesn't have the same luxury. We have a sofa bed, and he's welcome to use it. So we may be all doubling up for a little bit, but we're here as long as it takes.
Well, good luck. Good luck to you, and good luck to us as Americans that this gets done, and gets done in a way that doesn't make life harder for people like me.
I'm into that. This would be about making people's lives easier, making people's lives better, not just around the holidays, but all year round. And, I'll speak as the incoming chair of the new Democrat coalition, the moderate Democrats, and moderate is a style. It's not a position. We have a whole lot of perspectives, but the new Dems are the folks who are willing to work across the entire Democratic caucus and across the aisle to get things done to make people's lives better, and we're going to keep trying to do that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the fact that you're working as hard as you are to get this done. Thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you, and to you, wishing you a happy holiday, everyone who's listening. Happy holidays.
You too.
May the new year bring us good and healthy times.
Yes, and the resolve to fight, resist, refuse, and whatever else it takes. Thank you, Congressman.
Stand strong.
Yeah.
Stand strong. Know your principles. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Congressman Brad Schneider represents Illinois' 10th District. He hasn't been informed of a vote, at least not in the next few minutes, but he's ready to stick it out as long as it takes to get a budget. Like I said, Washington Post reporting that Mike Johnson thinks he might have better luck trying to split this one bill up into 3 different bills. Good luck with that, Mike. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with more calls, more news, more talk right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
It is Friday, and we talk about the news of the day and take your calls for the first half of the show. Our good friend Bobby from Indiana is on the line. Happy holidays, Bobby.
Oh, happy. Well, I tell you, if no one should need any more or better proof that the Republican Party cannot govern at all anymore. This latest stunt really ought to put that to rest forever. You know, you were right the other day, as you so often are, which is why they call you the great and wondrous Joan Esposito, that it was good old Elon's money that dumped lard rump back in the White House again, and that's what'll keep him there. That's going to be the epic fight between them two, and I wonder which one of the two presidents will end up being the one in the Oval Office by the time it's all over. But it's a mess before the game even starts.
Yes,
but,
yes. You know, everybody's been talking about, remember how chaotic things were when Donald Trump was in the White House the first time around. He's not even in the White House, and he's already creating chaos.
Yeah, it's, this was funny. Went out during the week with my sister and brother-in-law. We went out to a place for dinner. And so it's in Chesterton. They live in Valparaiso. And there's this kind of semi-major artery between Valpo and Chesterton. The name is Meridian Road. And we're coming back on it. And I call this about a mile stretch Idiot Trail. And So the first thing you see, I'm pretty sure I found out now who made that. You remember the big fancy gallows they made for Pence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody spent a fortune in lumber to make this sign that's wedge-shaped so that it's got two sides so that whatever way you're coming down the road, you see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then on both sides in giant letters, it says, Trump Nation. And that's your first reading. Now, I forget what the second stupidity is. And then the last one is this great big banner that stretches across the front of this guy's garage. And it's brilliant. It says Trump in big letters, of course. And then right below that was right, about, and then below that in big letters, everything.
Oh, Bobby, you are in the heart of it. Man, oh, man.
Oh, God almighty. Oh, God almighty.
You are surrounded. You are an island of sanity.
Well, no, I lost whatever sanity I had left after seeing that. But I mean, good God. I wonder at some point if he's going to start looking up at that banner and wishing he might not have put that up there. I don't know. But
well, you know, that's one of the things that Democrats are discussing. Do we try to prevent the worst of the pain, or do we let Trump be Trump? And you know what? This is what you voted for, because, you know, all the farmers seem to think that he's on their side. You know, a lot of rank and file union members seem to think he's on their side. You know, the farmers are the ones who are going to suffer if undocumented workers are transported. And, you know, that reminds me, I didn't get a chance to mention this yet. There's a big story in The Guardian. It started in the UK, but there's a Guardian U.S. News publication. Our Uline family who live in Lake Forest, the Uline family who were one of the largest donors to Trump, they're referred to as mega donors. And they are using shuttle buses to bring undocumented workers from Mexico to staff its warehouses in Wisconsin and other locations, even though they do not appear to have permission to work in the United States, according to a Guardian investigation. Talk about hypocrites. They're apparently bringing some of the workers, they bring them in on vacation visas or these other like part-time visas. But lawyers and immigrants advocates told The Guardian they believe the alleged practice is likely illegal and could be exploiting the workers enrolled in the program. So they bust them up to their warehouses. They work anywhere from 1 to 6 months, and then they bust them back to Mexico. The Ulines, who are major funders of Donald Deport-em-all Trump.
Well, doesn't it make sense? Doesn't it make sense? I mean, to me, that they're all of the same stripe. Like you say, they're hypocrites, cheats, liars. Think of any negative that you can find, and if you know that you can lump them all in it, and it. Well, see, my only problem, and I hate to go me, and I'm really not, because you know, remember the guy that called the other day, which made my point more than I can in a million words. That's living in somebody's garage and was worried about his Social Security coming. You remember that one?
Not off the top of my head.
Well, he called in and said, you know, he was worried if this...
Frank. Yes, that was Frank.
Frank, yeah. And there are plenty of Franks And then there are plenty of me that, I'm in a better situation. I mean, I have my own roof over my own head and everything, but if they start whacking away at Social Security, I will be in
at least Social Security is spared in a government shutdown because as I researched yesterday, it's all separately funded, and Social Security checks will continue if there's a shutdown. Yeah, for now, until they, Elon Musk is suggesting to Trump, and it's not a new idea. Republicans have been talking it for a long time. They want to privatize everything. Mm-hmm. They don't want the government taking care of Social Security. They want their buddies to own it and get rich off of it. And you know what? You think for-profit health insurance is bad? Wait till they privatize Social Security, and all of us are going to find we're living in a brave new world. Bobby, I got to run. I got to try to get through some of these other callers. Have a great holiday.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Let's go to Chicago. Ron is on the line. Hey, Ron, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. Getting ready for the holidays. Yes, Trump wants to have a government shutdown, which would mean that members of the military would not be paid. And then later on, he would want the military to help him deport the undocumented migrants. There's a disconnect somewhere there.
Yeah. And whether or not they end up using military, Tom Homan, who has been appointed Donald Trump's border czar, have you heard he said that he needs, how many more people he needs to hire as border agents, ICE agents? I mean, it's multiples of thousands that he wants to hire to do these mass deportations. So,
Yeah. And also what was I going to say? I can't remember. Well, happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you, too.
I'm getting old.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
Okay,
thanks so much for the call, Ron. I want to, we're going to get to more phone calls after we take a break for news, but I do want to get to some of the texts. Some people, some people said, I miss Brad Schneider. We need to talk to him a little bit more in the coming days and weeks and months, as I'm sure we will end up doing. One other person suggested YouTube videos by Dr. Ed Weir. And apparently this Dr. Weir talks about Medicare and Social Security and proposals that are being made by the new incoming administration. The listener says that Dr. Weir is not political. He used to run the third largest Social Security office in the United States, and these videos are simply educational videos. But he apparently breaks down, must be what's in Project 2025, since, of course, Donald Trump hasn't really enunciated any sort of specific plans that he's absolutely behind. But this person says once people see how it's going to affect their personal lives, hopefully they'll realize what they voted for. I think there's going to be a lot of buyer's remorse here, because some people say I voted for Trump because I'm a Republican. I always vote Republican. Okay. Seems to me, rather than party specific, you might want to be candidate specific, but maybe that's just me. And other people seem to be, he won't do what he says he's going to do. Even though we've seen him already in office once, and he did try to do everything he said he was going to do. So I guess we're going to wait and see how it all turns out. We are going to take a break for news. We're going to be back with more of your calls and more of what's going on today right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
Joan Esposito.
Y'all ready for this?
On WCPT 820.
It is Friday, and as you know, on Friday we spend the whole first half of the show talking about the news of the day and taking your calls. Let's get right back to the phone lines. Paul is on the line from Seattle. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Oh, I'm about as well as everyone.
Oh, a very careful description.
Well, I wanted to add to something that Steve said, in the last hour about why Republicans do this. I mean, anybody ever think about why are we doing this again? What is this continuing resolution again at Christmas time, or when these things come? And it's because, Steve was saying, they want to raise the debt limit so that they can have free tax cuts for billionaires, and it's already taken care of in the debt, and which, by the way, tells us that whenever Republicans make us think about the debt ceiling, it's always, we need cuts. So what they want is cuts in things that Democrats want, so that there's more room to give things away to billionaires.
There you go. You got it. You're following the program.
Okay, but there's another thing. Why are we doing this at Christmas time? Another continuing resolution, because, Joan, we have not had a federal budget in almost 17 years. I mean, a law that's called a budget, where the last president to sign a federal budget into law was George W. Bush in 2008. Now, the Republicans always talk about, the American family has to live on a budget, and so should the federal government. And remember, they wanted a balanced budget amendment way back when? Mm. Well, not anymore, because why don't they want to? And when Obama got in office, they would not pass. They filibustered every budget that Obama was going to sign. When Trump got into office, they never a budget is just a deal, is a law that the president works out with the Congress about revenues and expenditures. But notice this, it's similar to what Steve was saying. If you have a budget, you can't have tax cuts. That's it. You can't say, we want more room, we want more money for billionaires, because this is what they jockey for in these continuing resolutions, is more money for billionaires. So then I just want to mention one more thing, is that we keep hearing about, and you so aptly pointed out, that Social Security is a fund that stands on its own. It's not an entitlement, and neither is Medicare. Social Security and Medicare are earned benefits that you pay into directly. As a matter of fact, the Supreme Court in 1970, there was a case called Goldberg versus Kelly, and it had to do with how much due process is a party entitled to regarding discontinuation of an entitlement. In that case, the court had to define what an entitlement is, and essentially said this: an entitlement is a government benefit that the beneficiary, that the recipient, does not pay into directly, but may be entitled to through the criteria of the application process. Okay, so things like welfare, aided and defended children, food stamps, SNAP, Medicaid, but not Medicare, Medicaid. These are entitlements, but so are, as the court noted and what I read, things like military contracts, because military material is not something that can be sold on the commercial market. It's only sold to the federal government. And so the producers of these things have to apply. And so are, for instance, Medicaid-approved providers. And so, as by the way, even though your Medicare is not an entitlement to you as a recipient, Medicare Advantage providers have to apply to be Medicare Advantage providers. It's an entitlement to them, and then they dictate how much we have to pay when they are the one receiving the entitlement and we are the ones who have the earned benefit. And so all of this is about big giveaway. And by the way, any subsidy to a company or corporation, and I don't disagree with all of them, but any subsidy to a company or corporation is an entitlement because they have to apply for it. For instance, I agree with farm subsidies, many of them, especially for dairy, because if we didn't have dairy subsidies, milk would be $10 a gallon.
Yeah, entitlement is one of those words that a lot of people think they know what it means, but they don't. And it's just like socialism. I don't believe in socialism. Oh, yeah, you get a Social Security check? You might want to look at your definitions of your terms and find out exactly what you're talking about.
Elon Musk, and I think maybe it was Elizabeth Warren who's pointing out, Elon Musk has such a conflict of interest because he has so many of his companies are getting, how did he get to be a billionaire? He takes big federal dollars. That's how he got to be, because that's who has the billions, the federal government. And that's how you talk about the biggest welfare queen on this planet is Elon Musk.
Yep. And he's got everybody snowed, and he's got everybody cowed.
He's got everybody, and they're then to this, though. You know what? I'm all for, you want to start with a shutdown? I heard a woman on the news this morning, a woman from Oregon say, I think Trump's doing a great job. He's getting in there, and he's getting everything all set up. And I'm like, what? He's getting things all set up? He's about to have things all shut down. What do you mean all set up?
What do you think the odds are, Paul, that there'll be a budget agreement before midnight tonight?
The odds 50-50, because, and the reason I say that is Trump wants to, he said, so far Trump has not said anything other than let the shutdowns begin. If he doesn't get the debt ceiling raised, he says he wants so let him have it. And it's just like, and now we know that their whole thing with the debt ceiling was a big phony thing, because how many times have they held the Democrats over the barrel over the debt ceiling? No, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's the typical Republican playbook. When we want it, there's perfect justification for it. When you want it, it is the biggest outrage ever to be foisted on the American people. And, we should be so used to that.
And Fox News will have half the people believing that the Democrats' fault I don't know who the congressman was I heard on Stephanie this morning, was the Republican who was saying, the Democrats voted to shut down the government. They voted to shut down the government. No. They just didn't vote for the bill that was, it's just like, that's not voting to shut down the government. And even if they did, this is what somebody was pointing out, is that, but they're in the minority. If you wanted to keep the government open, how many Democrats voted to shut it down wouldn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right.
But the right wing, the MAGAs, they'll believe anything you tell them.
Yes. And I don't know what we do about that. I mean, it's just this, it seems to be this unbreakable faith that anything they are told is the truth. Paul, thank you so much for the call. I wish you a wonderful holiday. Take care of yourself, and we will talk again in the new year.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Let's go to our good friend Dave from Hoffman Estates. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Joan. Hey, looking at some other stuff from 5-6 years ago too, with where Erdogan and Trump were in, on the phone calls, and that where Erdogan was telling them he was going to attack those Kurds back then, and okay by Trump, he didn't care. Remember, I believe they were up on a
and even at that point, the Republicans in the Senate were pretty darn loyal to Trump, but a lot of them, the first time that we heard Republicans in the Senate saying no to Trump, because there were a lot of Republicans who felt very strongly the Kurds had been our allies. They had been almost our only allies in that particular part of the country. And basically, we were just going to turn our backs on them and let them all get slaughtered.
Yeah, we did that before with Iraq, too, that time when Schwarzkopf, or I call him Boomkopf, he got played by the Iraqis that time with the helicopters. And you can have that in the no-fly zone. And then they went and they were slaughtering them Kurds over there, too. And also today's date, too, that Trump had his temper tantrums again because he didn't get his way with that $5 billion that he was trying to screw us out of, for that wall that we weren't supposed to pay for, and that's what set the ball in motion about that holding the shutdown. That time, and
he the only thing, as I understand it, because especially the House of Representatives is pretty close. I mean, by the time the people Donald Trump has tapped to be in his government leave, they're going to have a one vote. Republicans are going to have a one vote majority in the House. It is going to be difficult, if not impossible, for them to get anything done because they cannot work together. And unless it's something that Democrats like, Democrats aren't going to work with them. So it's going to be another do nothing Congress. And I just think it's interesting that in this last budget bill that they voted on, 38 Republicans, even under threat of Elon Musk that he was going to fund primary challenges, 38 Republicans still voted no.
Yeah. And I'd love to know who were the two that voted yes, the Democratic persuasion.
I was trying to find that out myself. I have not seen a list by names yet on that. I have to...
Also, on this day, too, besides him having that meltdown, this was 6 years ago was when Mattis made that surprising announcement that his impending departure, and he was basically the last of the adults in the room for Trump, So, and he was...
And there aren't going to be any adults in the room this time around.
No.
Not a single one.
Nope. And on this one, too, at that time, he was pulling troops and stuff out of Syria, and I think it was like 7,000 he pulled out of Afghanistan. There was like about 2,000 out of Syria and 7,000 out of Afghanistan.
He locked the military into a timetable. He closed all the bases. Everybody was like, how that one base, when Joe Biden was trying to get everybody out, and how that one base was overrun. That's because Donald Trump closed all the other bases. There used to be like 6 of them, and then it was down to 1. And Donald Trump agreed to a timetable with the Taliban that, everybody's like, oh, Biden should have moved slower. But Biden had to honor this agreement that Donald Trump had locked him into, what was going to happen and when it was going to happen.
I think that
if it had been me
at Camp David.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's on the anniversary of 9/11. Let's bring the Taliban to Camp David.
Yeah.
That's a good look.
But on that, thinking about that with those pullouts from Afghanistan and Syria. Now, President Obama done that stuff. Remember, they would call it cutting and running.
Huh.
And that, and they didn't defeat ISIS, obviously, and that. And then lastly, they had a thing back when he keeps harping about that. In Mexico, coming across that we had international terrorists coming across, and it was proven no, there was not no international. That they were coming through Canada that time, and he was just so that it was Mexico, and the State Department and that they proved that that the terrorist organizations operating in Mexico and no evidence.
Not only does Donald Trump have a problem with the truth, but so does Elon Musk. I mean, it's been widely reported that of the 100-some social media posts that he put up to try to kill the budget deal, he was posting all kinds of things that were not true and were distortions and misinformation. I mean, they're cut from the same cloth. Dave, I got to get to a break. Wait a minute. Paul Shivari just found the 2 Democrats who voted yes, Kathy Castor from Florida and Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez from Washington. I don't know why they voted yes, but maybe they got confused.
Hey, Joan, when you come back, maybe the station, you guys should do like they always did on 9/11 on the anniversary of J6. Maybe we should play some stuff about when they rushed the Capitol and all of that stuff, So
that's a great idea. That's a great idea. I mean, I know it's we would be talking about it and revisiting it. Some of that stuff is just so hard to hear. But you know what? Like 9/11, we can't just turn our heads and pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah. Hey, Joan, and final thing, wear a mask. Now, when you go, wear a mask,
Yeah,
please.
I know.
Be well and have a Merry Christmas.
Thank
Talk to you when you get back.
Thank you,
Bye
Dave.
now.
We are going to take more calls as soon as we get right back after this break.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
It is Friday. It is the last Friday for me before the holiday. You are going to be talked to by political science professor William Muck this coming Monday. And every day that we have a show over the next couple of weeks, we are going to treat you to a wonderful array of fill-in hosts. Right now, we are taking your calls and talking about the news of the day. Let's go to Denver. Cynthia is on the line from Denver. Hey, Cynthia. Thanks for the call today.
Hey, Joan. Happy holidays and be blessed and well. Wear your mask always.
Yes.
I just think that the Democrats need to step out and be bolder and create a department that combats lies and misinformation daily. Staff it with the younger folks in Congress that tweet and, post on social media so there can be a video documentation daily of the horrific lies coming through.
That's a great idea. That is a great idea.
They need to do it, and I'm going to leave a message on my state congressperson's voicemail of that. I am sick of this Nancy Pelosi, high and mighty, keep silent, we're above it all mentality. I just can't take it anymore. And the general public obviously is woefully ignorant. They are crying out to be educated on how laws are made, how the baton is passed, how one administration benefits or suffers from the other. They just have to be educated, and that will stop.
Especially when people that they trust are lying to them,
And they don't seem to want to listen to anyone else. So just create a video library that they can pull up when they're ready, But at least we are doing it day by day. That's the best thing I liked about the Harris campaign. They did at least combat immediately all lies, all innuendos from the Trump campaign when she was running. They were just Johnny on the spot with responses and replies.
Yeah, I don't know who they had on that duty, but they were. I mean, within an hour you'd get something.
Right, and so they had David Plouffe. He might have been in on that, but I think he would be great if he wanted to staff and create the department. The Republicans aren't the only ones that can create stuff out of whole cloth when they want to, and not that we need to create out of whole cloth. It's just that we have to start thinking bigger and bolder to combat this, and that's the only way I think would work is education.
We gotta counter it somehow. Your idea sounds like as good as anything else I've heard, Cynthia.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll wise up somehow, and I'm going to leave the message, and I'm going to tweet about it and everywhere. So,
yep. Department of should we call it the Department of Information or the Department of Misinformation?
I would call it the Department to combat misinformation and lies.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We should maybe I'll figure out in the new year a new segment I can do. Let's counter today's lie.
Hey,
How about
that's
that?
a good idea, Joan.
Yeah. Today's lie is this, and now we're going to tell you what the truth is. So when you're talking to your friends out and about and they spout today's lie, you can say, "Oh no, my friend. Oh no."
Yes, that's a good idea too, Joan. Well, you have my blessings. Be safe and do have a blessed and happy New Year here.
Thank you, Cynthia. Appreciate it. You too. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Want to go to our good friend Roosevelt, who's on the line. Hey, Roosevelt.
Joan,
how you doing?
How you doing? So I said this morning only in Spanish, so I'm going to repeat it in English. Do you know how much Elon Musk got subsidies for when Obama was president? $465 million. So he claims that he supported Obama. He supported even Biden, he says, in 2020. And now it's Trump. I don't believe that.
Well, yeah, he's also like Trump. He's gonna get behind anybody who is in a position to help him. He doesn't care.
And Paul from Seattle, that's to add on, to put a little tail on it, because he is a welfare queen. And
he
corporate welfare. Yeah, and corporate welfare, I want to be specific as far as the other one. The petrol industry, the oil industry. Remember they were in front of Congress answering questions, and have they given up the subsidies that they've gotten for over 80, I don't know, maybe 90 years? They don't need government subsidies. They've had the most gains, the most profit in the history of the world, if I'm not mistaken, Joan. So, and what is Trump doing? Did he ever get that $1 billion down there in Mar-a-Lago when he had them all down there on the big oil rig?
If he did, he was very quiet about it, because I didn't read that. I didn't read that it actually came through, that anybody actually lined his pocket that way. I think actually one of the people who was in attendance was the one who leaked it and reported that that's what he was offering, because somebody there was apparently a little bit aghast at what was being offered to them and did not think it was appropriate and made it public.
And Joan, where's the press when it comes down to all those meetings that Trump has had in Mar-a-Lago? I said this also this morning. Viktor Orban was down there. Netanyahu was down there. Bolsonaro was down there. Remember some of those guys got COVID? The Brazilian guy, including the mayor of Miami, because they were all at a dinner, when he had them down there.
Yeah. Well, remember when Donald Trump was in the White House last time, he did not release the logs. I don't even know if there were logs. There are supposed to be logs that record who comes and goes. I've been on the White House press list for Biden. President Biden picks up the phone and talks to somebody, and you get a readout. It's an email readout of President Biden's chat with Justin Trudeau. Readout of this, meeting here, meeting there. Donald Trump brought all of that to a close. He didn't want anybody to know who he was talking to, when he was talking to him. He didn't want anybody to know what he was doing. And that, I imagine, he's going to reinstate very quickly. Roosevelt, we are out of time. I have got to wrap this up and get to a break. Thank you for calling. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday.
Same here, Joan. Thank you very much.
Take care. We are going to take that break. When we come back, we are going to be joined by Chef Lisa from the Chopping Block right after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
The reason that I listen to you from the infamous other side, you will call a spade, and if it's indefensible, you will not defend it. And you know what? I can respect that.
On WCPT 820.
Thought we would have a little bit of fun as we head into the holidays. It is a time when a lot of people have family over, a time when a lot of people are cooking for family, and it's always fun to talk about different things we could cook and different ways we could cook them. Joining me now is Chef Lisa Counts from the Chopping Block. Chef Lisa, how are you today?
I am so fabulous, Joan. Thank you so much for having me on today.
You know, it just occurred to me that these holidays, when the rest of us are, getting ready to put our feet up and have fun, if you're a chef, the holidays have to be like your busiest time.
It most definitely is. I feel like, I'm always jealous of all of my other friends and family who are jet setting, taking time off. And here we are in our busiest season, but I couldn't be happier. I'm really excited for the chopping block this season.
When you cook for the holidays, what are some of your favorite dishes to cook?
I would say every single year, one of my favorite things to do for Christmas Day especially is I make cinnamon rolls for breakfast and lasagna for dinner. And I love those two dishes because I make them before Christmas even happens, and I just pull them out of the freezer and pop them in the oven so I can actually enjoy the day with my family.
Oh, that's brilliant. So you're not talking about those little cans that you smack on the edge of the counter and they pop open and everything flies out? I imagine those are not the cinnamon rolls you're talking about.
Those are not the cinnamon rolls I'm talking about. But yet, those are still quite delicious. If you don't have time to make your own, it's still a really great tradition.
Is there one cookbook or one chef whose recipes you really admire?
Oh, that's such a great question. It's hard to pick a favorite. There are so many good cookbooks out there, and, so many great recipes that I've just accumulated over the time from people I've worked with. So I would have to say that one of my favorite cookbooks would have to be, one of the ones that I got back in school, and that's my Escoffier cookbook, because it really just breaks down some great techniques to cover all cooking, not just for holidays.
I have to confess, one of my favorite things to make is, and trust me, I am not known in any circle as any kind of cook, chef, or baker. It's unless you like everything charred, because I do that really well. But I make a Gruyere rosemary shortbread that is usually a really big hit as long as people can tolerate Gruyere. And I got the recipe several years ago in the Neiman Marcus Christmas catalog. It was like, hey, buy all these cooking stuff, and over in the corner, look, there's a recipe. And I thought, ooh, that sounds good. It was from the Neiman Marcus catalog that I got one of my stellar recipes.
That's an amazing find. I mean, it just goes to show you can find great recipes and inspiration anywhere you look.
Let's talk about Christmas cookies. Do you make a lot of them? Do you make them from scratch? Which is your favorite?
I do make mine from scratch. We actually just had a huge cookie exchange here at the chopping block with all the staff. And, one of my great hacks is if you do not have time to make your own sugar cookie dough, take that shortcut, buy the pre-made dough that you can roll out, cut out yourself, and then you can put your own, fancy touches on it. And I find that the easiest way to decorate sugar cookies, because I'll admit I'm not a great typer of icing, I like to do the dip dye method, where you can have bowls of different colored icing, and then you just drip a couple of drops of a different color icing or a darker color icing, and you kind of swirl it with a toothpick. And so when you dip your cookie in and lift it out, it looks like a really cool tie-dyed, appearance to it. And it's super simple.
Wow.
I teach it to my kids' classes, and it's a really striking, visual.
And when you say you make the icing, is icing just powdered sugar and what, milk or water or butter or something?
A traditional icing that goes on sugar cookies is a royal icing, and so we make that with egg whites and powdered sugar and a little cream of tartar for stability. But there are other kinds of icings, just like powdered sugar and milk, like you said, that I just find it doesn't work with that dip dye, but is good for piping.
I'm getting hungry. You mentioned that one of the things you love about Christmas is when you serve the cinnamon rolls and you serve the lasagna, you can make those ahead of time. What are some other things that people can make ahead of time so that they can have something homemade but not be in the kitchen all Christmas morning?
Oh, that's such a great question. You know, work smart, not hard has always been my motto in the kitchen. So doing as much as you can ahead of time, like prepping ingredients, just getting things cut ahead of time. So all you have to do is throw it in the oven to roast or saute it or things like that. But one of my go-tos to make ahead of time is also making, in my family, we're Italian, so we do a lot of the Feast of the Seven Fishes dishes for Christmas Eve, and I love making a seafood salad because the longer that sits in the fridge, the better it gets, the more it marinates. But I understand that's not for everybody, and, you know, seafood can be very polarizing. But I say that just about with any kinds of salads that you can pre-make, have them marinating, and they just develop more flavor over time.
I have to confess, I'm a very bad Italian. I've heard for my whole life about the seven fishes, and I've never gone any place where they served it. Is it seven different, like, casseroles of seven different kinds of fish? What is the seven fishes?
It can vary depending on family and where you're from. It definitely is more of an Italian-American thing compared to just in Italy. But it's just an assortment. And the reason why it's seven is, you know, it's a very lucky number in the culture and in the religion. So, you know, in my seafood salad, I have octopus and calamari and shrimp and scallop and crab. So that's five right there. So then maybe I'll serve it with, you know, a clams dish and a whole bronzino. But as long as there's seven fish in any way, shape, or form on the table, that's considered a feast of seven fishes.
Well, you know, I think a lot of people are curious about that now since it was that big episode in The Bear last year where, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis was doing the seven fishes, and it was quite the episode.
Very intense.
Yes. Chef Lisa, we need to take a break. Chef Lisa Counts is with the Chopping Block. It is on Lincoln Avenue, 4747 North Lincoln. One of the things that I want to ask her about is if you're looking for a last-minute gift, how about cooking classes? Let's find out how that works when we come right back after this.
Joan Esposito, live.
Celebrating our power to bring about change.
Local.
Everybody has to work together.
And progressive.
I think you get the idea.
On WCPT 820.
We are heading into the holidays. You are probably toying with the idea of cooking for your family. Chef Lisa Counts is here from the Chopping Block, 4747 North Lincoln. You may also be in the market for a last-minute gift. Lisa, can people gift cooking classes?
They can. I always suggest that the best way to gift the gift of the Chopping Block would be to give a gift card because, A, gift cards never expire. They're good towards not only classes but also merchandise or wine to enjoy during your class. But this way, by giving a gift certificate or a gift card, the recipient can then fit it into their schedule, find a date and time that suits them, find a curriculum or class that they fancy instead of trying to gift a specific class. And then all of a sudden, oh, I can't make that class. It's kind of harder to deal with the background. And, you know, we have so many great classes coming up for New Year's, but also into the new year. You know, if you give the gift for Christmas, they can use it anytime next year, whether they have a New Year's resolution to get cooking, which is the Chopping Block's motto, or, you know, maybe they want to learn how to cook healthier or learn the basics. We have classes for all of that.
And are you still doing the wine class? Because the last class that Ray and I took was, I think it was learning about Spanish wines. And it was so much fun. We were over there in Lincoln Square, and our instructor was extremely knowledgeable, and we got to taste all these different kinds of wines and find out about them. I thought that was a hoot.
Yes, we still have tons of wine and mixology classes. One of our most popular is how to bluff your way through wine, which is one of my favorites. You don't have to know everything, but there's some tips and tricks to learn. But we also have food and wine pairings, which is really great because the chef will cook for you a full meal to pair with all the awesome wines, and you'll learn all about the wines as well as how to pair them with food and why it makes sense, and they are really delightful.
You know, we've talked about cooking for families, but a lot of people get invited over to other people's homes, and they may want to bring a dish. What are good things that are not too difficult to make and that travel well?
That's a great question. I always get asked, what can I bring? And sometimes it's hard to answer that when you are the host. So I always suggest to my guests, bring whatever your family likes, so at least there's something on the table for you. But it also brings in some of your own traditions to another home. And I love hearing about, why did you make this dish? Or what does this mean to you? And so things that I see get brought most often are sides and desserts. And I think food holds a very special memory for people, especially around the holidays. So I love hearing, this is my grandma's or my nona's, pecan tart, and I've been eating this ever since I can remember. So in short, I think desserts are one of the easiest things to bring because they can last for a while. They're very easily packed and travel well. They can be made in advance and sit with no issue to the quality. But I also like different appetizers or sides, whether it's kind of like a casserole of sorts. Those always travel really well and can be a blank canvas for whatever flavors that you like. I'm actually on a gougères kick, a savory, cream puff, if you will. And so I love making those and bringing them to places as well.
I used to get, before it folded, one of those cooking magazines. Actually, at various times, I've gotten all the cooking magazines. Not that it's really had an effect on me, but I remember reading some chef, maybe a chef who also did catering, bemoaning the fact that every time they were asked to cater appetizers, the one thing that they were asked to provide, and it was always the biggest hit of the night, were pigs in a blanket. And it was like, we do all these great things with brie and with artichokes, and what does everybody want? They want pigs in a blanket. Why do you think that is?
Like I said, it's nostalgia, especially, around the holidays. I love a good pig in the blanket, and I'm guilty of making them right around Super Bowl season. So I get it. But I think that there are ways to elevate things like that.
Like how? Elevate our pig in a blanket.
So, using those canned biscuits instead of doing something like that, maybe using a different kind of pastry, whether it's a puff pastry or, a homemade pastry. But also, instead of just pastry and dog, maybe you add some fresh herbs or some different condiments inside the pastry before you wrap your pig up.
The last time I made them, they didn't turn out so well. I used those little smokies, and I thought that they were just a little too smoky for a perfect pig in the blanket. I wanted a little more pig and a little less smoke. What do you wrap up in your dough?
Great question. So I would say the last time I made them, I think I actually took regular hot dogs and actually cut them up into bite-sized pieces.
Now, see, that would be good.
And
those little smokies were not good.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a little much. But, if and when that ever happens again, maybe, you're not happy with the end result, that's when you can find a good dip to kind of help mask but balance those flavors. So as soon as you said too much smoke, I thought, a really good, like, creamy, whether it's yogurt or a sour cream, would help nullify that overly smoky.
What's your favorite dip to make?
I am a sucker. I think that's why I said it first is yogurt. I love yogurt dips. I love, whether it's adding different citrus or different vinegar to it and herbs. It's so simple. It's so quick, but it can go with a variety of things from meatballs to, little smokies to veggies. A yogurt dip is such an easy way to, dip a bunch of things.
I've been thinking about how you said you were going to be making lasagna because it's a great meal. You can make it ahead of time. What are some other easy yet elegant dishes that you can serve a crowd?
Ooh, great question. Another thing that's going to be on my table this year is a sweet potato casserole. And for me, that's my nostalgia from my mother, where we do a really great mashed sweet potato that we mix with maple syrup, a little bit of mustard, and some brown sugar. Yeah, mustard? You need a little bit of acid to complement all the sweet. But my secret ingredient is ancho chili powder. So you've got this sweet, a little bit of spice and smoky, and then I do a little pecan brittle on top. So it's pecans and flour and brown sugar, and as it bakes, it creates this really great crust on top and this really smooth mashed sweet potato on the bottom. But I say that because I'm going to have that made 2 days in advance and just throw it in my oven to reheat. And it's just baked in a casserole dish. It reheats well. It looks pretty, and it's easy. Just making some mashed sweet potatoes and flavor it however you like.
Do you ever put marshmallows on top?
My mom used to growing up, and I've slowly outgrown the marshmallow and I gravitated more towards the crunch factor with the pecans. But yes, I have done that.
One of the things that I've always enjoyed making are, I don't know what you call them, stuffed potatoes or twice-baked potatoes, where you scoop out the potato and then you add whatever you like, whether it's cheese or you can season it, or even some, cut up onion or some cut up spinach, and then you smush it all together and you scoop it back in and put it under the broiler. And those are, I like that because it's like it's a great dish that you can make in any number of ways. It's not like, I can't make my stuffed potatoes. I don't have X ingredient. Well, then, I'll make it with Y ingredients tonight.
Exactly. I love dishes that you can customize a multitude of different ways. And I call that, my cleaning out the cooler cooking, where, okay, I've got these potatoes, but yes, it's very elevated, by flavoring it with different things. I do a bacon cheddar scallion baked potato. That's one of my go-tos. And I've done them with all different size potatoes. So for a little fancy, finger food, which is kind of what I like to gravitate to for New Year's Eve, kind of small bites, I've done it in finger length potato. So it's kind of like this little poppable twice baked potato.
A little baby one.
Yeah, a little baby one.
Is the chopping block open on New Year's Eve? Are you doing anything special there?
Eve is one of our specialty class weekends, so we kick off on Saturday, and we'll be open Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, into the new year. We are only closed on the 1st. We've got so many fun kind of elevated menus going on this year. We've got a Festa Italiana class, which has lamb and farro and a cioppino. We've got a French steakhouse class with steak au poivre, potato dauphinoise, a chocolate frangelico mousse, which is to die for. But we also have fun family time. Yeah, we've got a family noon New Year's Eve class. So in the afternoon, there's a cooking class, which is meant to be cooking with the family. So kids of all ages are invited.
I never even thought about that, because I always think of cooking classes as something grown-ups do. And yet, most kids love to get involved in stuff like that. Your kids' cooking class over New Year's weekend, what are they going to make? Do you have any idea?
It's kind of meant for the entire family, so parents are staying there.
Pigs in blankets! Pigs in blankets! I vote for pigs in blankets! I'm sorry.
That's it. I'm going to have to change the menu now. We're going to put that on there because Joan Esposito said so. No, and it's things like that we do in our kids' classes, things that are fun and approachable, but we can still teach technique and flavors.
Well, I think that's terrific. Now, if people are interested in either buying a gift card or getting some of your cooking utensils and supplies or signing up for a class, do they do that through the website? Obviously, if you're going to go buy a pan, I would assume you show up in person.
That is correct. Unfortunately, we don't have a website where you can purchase retail items, but our website is a wealth of information. So on the choppingblock.com, there is a gift cards tab where you can send e-gift cards and purchase gift cards for yourself or for others. You could always come down to our retail location and purchase a physical gift card to gift for somebody as well. We'll be open all New Year's weekend, Sundays through December, and we've got all the equipment that we use in classes for sale. You can sign up for classes in person or on the website. We make it really easy, and every month we stay ahead. So right now our classes are posted through January, and then by the end of next week, all of February will go live as well.
That sounds wonderful. One of my New Year's resolutions is going to be to get out more and do things more. It's so easy, particularly when it's cold and dark, to just sort of cocoon in the house. And I don't think that's good for mental health. And I think as the political world gets more stressful going forward, people are going to need more stress relievers. And, taking a class, when we did that wine evening, we had so much fun. And, the kind of people who attend a class like that with you are people who are a lot of fun. And I think that this is going to be on my list of things that I can do when I feel like I'm losing my mind, Lisa.
That is great. And what I hear most from people, too, is gifting experiences really does mean a lot more to people than just getting another gadget or something, So going out and having a good time is really, really popular right now as gifts go.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for being here. It was delightful talking to you, and I'd like to do this on a fairly regular basis if you're around in 2025. Hanging out.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much. This has been a delight for me as well. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you. You as well. And I just want to remind everybody listening that Chef Lisa Counts is at the Chopping Block, 4747 North Lincoln. It's the Lincoln Square, right? That's Lincoln Square, as I seem to recall. Like I said, I was drinking wine and I wasn't driving, so my memories are a little vague. But it's really a wonderful place, and maybe we can get together with some ideas for a romantic Valentine's Day meal. What do you think?
We've got quite a few coming up. We treat Valentine's Day just like New Year's Eve classes. Woo-hoo! We have elevated meals. We even have a chocolate boot camp coming up.
Well, okay, you had me at chocolate. Chef Lisa, thank you for being here. We are going to take a news. We're going to be joined by our good friend Tony Fitzpatrick when we come right back after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
Joan Esposito.
Y'all ready for this?
On WCPT 820.
Not just Joan Esposito, but her good friend, actor, artist, poet, Tony Fitzpatrick is here. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well, all things considered. I'm sort of girding my loins for 4 years of utter misery and anger.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I was listening a segment coming up about sometimes when people come over for Christmas and they want to bring something. Here's my advice. Don't bring anything speculative. Don't bring anything you have not made before. Whenever somebody walks through the door and goes, oh, wow, I've never made this before, and I brought it over for you, I'm thinking, why the hell am I the guinea pig? Why don't you try this out on somebody you don't like as much first,
And maybe, Tony, people who are really good in the kitchen can get away with that. But if you ever hear me say that, whatever I bring, don't touch it. I promise you, it will be awful.
Beautiful women are not known for their prowess in the kitchen. You know what I mean? No.
Well, that's a kind of a left-handed compliment. But you know what? I'll take it. I will take it.
Well, you know what? I'm Irish. We are not known for our cuisine. You know what I make? Although, you know what? Michelle can cook. Michelle's actually good.
What's her best dish?
Her best dish, I love her chili, and you know what? She's been making baked ziti lately.
Ooh.
I can only eat so much of it. She's really good. We call it the effing ziti, like the Sopranos. But she makes incredible chili. I mean, just mind-blowing chili. But sometimes, somebody will come over and go, I've never tried this before. It's like, then leave it at home.
Really?
Like,
we only want the things that you're really expert at making. No experiments here.
I have a bunch of friends who are like James Beard Award-winning chefs. You know what I mean? Like, when my pal Dave Bonomi brings a dish through the door, I am very happy to eat it. I mean, this guy, he owns Peanut Park, and believe me, everything on the menu at Peanut Park is absolutely exquisite. So, I'm very happy for people like that to bring something. But when it's somebody who's, like, related to me, I tried something new. No.
No, just no. Yeah. Bring over a couple of bags of potato chips and a couple of cartons of dip.
Yeah. Or some like salami, some charcuterie that you bought somewhere. Not something that,
Yeah.
And, also, keep your fingers out of my food. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? People got their meat hooks up in your... and if you're bringing a dip, bring me a dip that you bought. Don't bring me something you concocted at home. Those are rarely ever any good, Joan. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you on that. I'm all for that. Hey, I wanted to talk to you. You've got a new studio. You're making friends with all the dogs in the neighborhood. Some of the drawings you've been doing of these dogs are just amazing. I love what you did with Tilly. Tell me about this new life you've got going.
I moved back to Damon Avenue, and, the studio I used to have, my wife turned that into a wine store, and she bought the building. And she's in a good business. Nobody's going to stop drinking wine, except me, of course. I can't.
I know.
But she's going great guns over there. And he said, you should be back on Damon. You should have a storefront. It's like, and I missed having a storefront. So one of the things is that I think people move to Bucktown and Wicker, and the first thing they do is adopt a pit bull. You know what I mean? So
a Chicago dog.
I've become friends with all the neighborhood dogs, and I give out treats, and they literally pull their owners to my studio now, which I didn't realize it was a marketing strategy, but a few of these folks who own these dogs have been buying my work. And when I started drawing the dogs, oh my God! And you know what? I draw dogs really well. You know, I love them. You know, I mean, nobody loves dogs like I do. My friend from one of my recovery meetings has this gorgeous dog named Ghost Dog. And I adore this dog. I've drawn him like 3 times, and I'm going to draw him again. And I'm working on a new book called The Sun at the End of the Road. And the dogs have figured into it, you know. I mean, since getting sober again, and you know, the thing that kind of relieved me of depression, honestly, and I'm not kidding, was just greeting these dogs every day, sitting out in front of my studio with a big can of dog treats. And you know, I lost my dog about a year and a half ago, and these dogs have, like, kind of restored me to life. I know that sounds odd.
No, it doesn't.
No, it's absolutely the truth, you know. I mean, there's this one dog named Tilly who comes and visits me every day. And
you sent out an email with the drawing of Tilly, and what I loved is how it started. It is odd how some dogs wear their biography right on their face. What a perfect line.
She's one of them, you know. I mean, I'm working on I'm working on a poem about her, and she was one of those dogs who her owner, a lovely woman named Alyssa, got her off of death row, you know, got her off of out of a pound. And, you know, I mean, Billy had been abused, you know, by some piece of human garbage who did not deserve to have such a lovely animal. And when she first started coming in here, she literally came in with her tail between her legs, you know, and now she realizes I'm the softest touch on Damon Avenue, and she comes in, and I always have a ton of treats for her, and she loves me up. You know, she sits up, she takes my hand with her paws, and we call that sitting pretty. And I just adore this dog. She is just one of the most beautiful creatures I've ever seen. You know, and, you know, I've become really good friends with all their owners and said to them, hey, you ever need a dog sitter, I'm your guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, to the point where I'm ready to have a dog, you know. And I want to get, like, a smaller dog because I want it to outlive me, you know. I don't want to ever lose another dog. I've got a couple of corgis who come by who are just hysterical. One named Dozer, who's and he's just like that. He's like a bulldozer. He comes in. His owner is a cool guy named Max who stops by every day. He's retired. You know, a lot of retired guys walk up and down the street, and you know they're like, you know, we always just kind of wonder what to do with ourselves. And I said, you know, I chose something I'd never retire from, and I'm enjoying this immensely. Drawing the dogs has just been a joy, you know, and making drawings about the neighborhood I live in. That's what the next book's about. So I'm in a really good place. I'm enjoying it. I work 7 days a week because I love coming here, you know. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I just eat, and sometimes I just greet my neighbors, you know. You know, this is an interesting stretch of Damon in that there are 19 businesses that are owned by individuals. It's called Indie Row. And, you know, there are no chains. There are no, you know, Starbucks or Lululemon or any of that stuff. I mean, that's like further south on Damon. But, you know, we have a really good community, and I've been really blessed and really grateful for my neighbors. They welcomed me back with open arms, and they have treated me with nothing but kindness. I had carolers in here a couple weeks ago.
I saw you posted that picture.
Unbelievable. They were great. They were really, really good. We served hot chocolate, and I had a lady from the neighborhood business association. She served hot chocolate, and if they wanted it spiked with schnapps, she'd do that too. And the hot chocolate was incredible. Royal Grocer made a couple of little tureens of it, and it was wonderful just having people in and out. For Halloween this year, I used to always complain that I didn't get any traffic where I used to be over in Humboldt Park. And, oh, my God, I had, probably 200 kids.
Wow.
For Halloween.
We were really lucky. There was good weather this last Halloween. I had probably 100.
Yeah, I gave out the really good stuff.
I always do, too. Kids are always like, oh, it's, and then they'll yell to another, she's got full-size candy bars.
Exactly. And believe me, it goes through the wire really quickly when they know that they're getting the good stuff. But, I've really enjoyed becoming part of this community. I've only been here since September, and I've been on fire creatively. I've been making work like a banshee, and I'm just happy to be back here. I'm infinitely happier than I was, 6 months ago.
Well, that's saying something. When you get to our age and you can say something like that, that's meaningful. That's really meaningful. Tony, let's take a break, and then because I want to talk to you more about what your neighbors have to say about the Bucktown area, and also if they ever share anything, if there are any thoughts about what they think about Chicago as a whole. I'm talking to poet artist Tony Fitzpatrick. We will be right back after this.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
I'm joined by my friend Tony Fitzpatrick, artist, poet, actor. One thing I want to ask you before we start talking about Chicago, there's this producer I've been following on social media who has sort of become an unofficial spokesperson for the industry. And as I'm sure you know, the industry, especially based in Los Angeles, the television and film industry, even reality TV, all of that is going through some really, really, really tough times. People having a lot of trouble getting jobs, production companies making fewer shows, also trying to export a lot of their production. We've got all these, good union contracts. People make a living wage with safe working conditions. So what some of the companies are doing is they're taking production overseas. This guy was talking about there is a production house in Ireland that is currently doing 3 television shows that are not meant for the European market. They're television shows that are going to air in the United States. But, you work in Ireland, you don't have to abide by any union rules, and you don't have to pay union wages. What are, as an actor, what are you seeing now, Tony?
Well, this is a discussion me and my son Max had. Max is in an independent film that is due to come out January 7th, and it will probably travel the festival circuit. And for the first time, he has the lead role, and this is always a conundrum because the platforms have kind of taken over the industry. Netflix and Amazon and outfits like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a proud member of SAG. I've walked the picket line for SAG. I'm sorry to hear that Ireland is having runaway production. The one thing I noticed about how drastically the business has changed is I began to get an inkling of it when the show that I was on, Patriot, was canceled after 2 seasons. And, before we could really build up a big audience, and then COVID happened and people found the show, so we don't actually know that we won't have another season someday, but the platforms kind of have us by the short hairs. The studios.
Well, that's actually what this guy, Patrick, is his name. I'm blanking. He said that he thinks the way this is going to work out is that creative types are going to just be doing more independent production. Do it without the underwriting of a studio. Get your own financing. Do your own project. And then you've got something to sell.
Absolutely. You know what? The one thing I told both of my kids, who are both, Gabby just made her first film in Guadalajara, a workshop that was intensive and really smart. I told both of them, I said, look, the thing that is going to be the most productive for us as artists is to generate our own material, and they are doing that, That said, my son Max is a member of SAG. When we did this independent film, we did it with a deferral from our union. I'm all for independent projects, these, even as a member of the Screen Actors Guild, our union is very generous as far as allowing you to do independent projects, as a member of SAG. They want you working. They want you doing more. They want you, it used to be that a lot of productions went to Canada.
And still do. And, Canada... Gavin Newsom, in response to the slowdown in L.A., he has pitched doubling the tax breaks that are available. The only problem is Canada, I don't know, they either matched him or they slightly exceeded his. And the way that things are set up there, the local government can just decree it. Gavin Newsom has to bring it to the state legislature, and it has to be voted on. So is it coming? Yes. Is it coming anytime soon? No, is the bottom line. There's Georgia. Mark Wahlberg is part of a big production build-out in Nevada. Even Cinespace here in Chicago. A lot of production not being done in L.A. anymore.
Oh, absolutely. It's being done. It's a movable feast. And honestly, what Governor Newsom is proposing is the smartest thing he could do for the film business in LA to bring production back there. It is so much cheaper to make films in Georgia, in Chicago, in New Mexico, in Las Vegas. The studios had, carte blanche for a very, very long time. And I'm glad to see the democratization of the business. That doesn't mean that any of us go non-union. We hang on to SAG, we hang on to IATSE, we support the Writers Guild of America, the Directors Guild of America. These are institutions that protect us as artists, But independent production, they'll always work with the unions. They'll always work with us. Atlanta became a powerhouse kind of studio town, just with shows like Blackish and
Netflix didn't Netflix move just about all of their production to Atlanta?
Oh, yeah, damn near. So I applaud that. I mean, I do feel bad when movies get farmed out immediately only to the platforms, and they bypass the theater experience, which I think is still really important, particularly when you make a film, say something shot on 70 millimeter, or you make something like There Will Be Blood, or The Masters, the great Paul Thomas Anderson films. I still love walking into the music box and seeing a film, on a big screen. I like even the Webster or City North 14. I love going to the movies. I mean, this was part and parcel, part of my life. Deciding that I wanted to be, an actor, and that I wanted people to, see things on a big screen. That said, I will say, there are independent producers like, Taylor Hackford, who's got a bunch of great shows out, particularly this new one with Billy Bob Thornton, which is called Landman, which is about the oil industry, and it's smart. It's an even-eyed look that, as much as we want alternative energy, as much as we want wind and solar, we're still a good 50 years away from anything like that being able to support us. And the big worry of the oil industry, and they won't talk about it if you will listen to them, is that they're worried about running out before there is an actual alternative.
Wow. Hey, Tony, hold that thought, because we've got to take a break. I'm talking with Tony Fitzpatrick. We are going to continue our conversation right after this.
Esposito, live, local, and progressive on WCPT 820.
Artist, actor, poet Tony Fitzpatrick is back in a new studio on Damon Avenue, talking to the folks as they walk by with their dogs, and doing some amazing art about those dogs. The most recent being Tilly, who he was just telling us about. I wanted to ask you, Tony, in these conversations that you're having with people every day, do they ever talk about how they feel about the city of Chicago, things that they think are either going right or going wrong?
Very often. They're, worried about property taxes, and we've just narrowly averted a property tax hike.
Yep.
And they're worried about the schools, and they're also just worried about the city services. And they do not have a lot of faith in our current leadership. They do not have a lot of faith in Brandon Johnson. And in this neighborhood, believe me, almost to a person, we all voted for him. I expected better. I think a lot of people tell me that they knew we were in trouble when he fired Dr. Arwady, who saw us through COVID.
Yeah. He said when he was campaigning and he was asked about her, he said that he was going to make a change. And, new mayor, that's absolutely their right. But the fact that she was treated so poorly, she was supposed to have a meeting with him. Not only did he not meet with her, he went off, I think it was a Bruce Springsteen concert, and had his chief of staff fire her on a Friday night. Yeah.
He texted her from a limo on the way to the Bruce Springsteen concert, which I think was an incredibly shabby way to treat Dr. Arwady. I thought, Lori Lightfoot definitely had a troubled tenure as mayor. But one of the things she absolutely did right is she had the right public official in charge of public health. I thought Dr. Arwady was really quite good, and kept us informed. And Joan very often delivered the news that nobody really wanted to hear.
Amen to that.
She did it just like Dr. Anthony Fauci did, clear-eyed, without affectation, and just gave us the facts. And I feel bad because I really felt that she was mistreated. And she should have been thanked. Even if you were going to replace her, there was a classier way to do it. There was a way to say, privately, may I ask you for your resignation, and I'd like to choose my own public health professional.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the last way to do it. And I just feel like Mayor Johnson, and believe me, nobody was pulling for him to succeed more than I was. I did not want Paul Vallis. I watched what happened with New Orleans school system, and one of the big bugaboos I have is the schools. I also think he could have sat down with the Chicago Teachers Union, being a product of that very same union. I think he could have sat down with them and said, "Look, we have to make real compromises, and I am a friend of you, and we have to back up on some of this stuff." And Joan, I'm a union man. I'm a member of 3 of them, but the CTU has to be much, much more realistic about what is possible.
Well, we're going to get a lot more reporting on the negotiation coming up, because tonight is the not regularly scheduled but lately called board meeting, where one of the agenda items is, are we going to fire Pedro Martinez? And I don't know if you saw this, but today Pedro Martinez's lawyer sent a letter to the school board saying, you need to, I think the meeting is like 7 o'clock tonight. You need to tell me right now whether you're planning to fire him, because we are preparing legal action, and that I will then move forward with if indeed that's what you're going to do. And they can fire him without cause, but it is it's a very expensive proposition. And he doesn't want to leave. And, whether or not there's probably a lot going on behind the scenes that you and I don't know about. But
I think that is an extraordinarily stupid move to fire.
Well, it's Brandon Johnson is getting blowback from everybody on this. Even the people who are usually in his corner are saying this is really bad, because the bottom line at least appears to us that because he wouldn't take out one of those payday loans and go into debt to settle the contract the way Brandon wanted him to, that Brandon wants to get rid of him. And, I mean, even Governor Pritzker was like, it's really not a good look to be taking out high-interest short-term loans. That's really not a good way to run a business.
He's not. The problem with Mayor Johnson is that he doesn't have any sense of pause, and I think he thinks he's a boss, and he's not. Believe me. The coalition that elected him, believe me, half of them have jumped ship. And what he is going to have to learn to do, the art of productive politics, they all like to, pose themselves as tough, uncompromising types. And you know what, Joan, you and I know enough of good politicians that the most productive politics in the world is the fine art of compromise. Mm-hmm. Nobody has 100% of what they want. if you get 60% of what you want, you're betting 1,000. You know,
yeah.
And Brandon, I think it would be a mistake to get rid of Martinez. I think he's I think he's a professional. I think he's all about the education, and I think he can do a world of good. You know, he's got to tell the CTU. He's got to say, look, you don't say jump, and I'm not going to say how high. Let's work together. You know, give me a break. Give me some room to move here. And, everything I've heard from Martinez sounds right. You know, I mean, it sounds cogent. You know, and I'm wondering if Brandon Johnson is one of those politicians who, for the life of him, cannot forge a coalition. And you know what? This was Mayor Lightfoot's Achilles heel. And believe me, I liked Lori Lightfoot. I liked her a lot. But I grew frustrated with her, kind of constant having to have an enemy, having to have a confrontation. It's like, this is not how we make the sausage, you know. Making policy is being able to speak to everybody and being able to come up with a productive compromise that moves the city forward. And you know what? Chicago needs to move forward. You know, we have a paralyzing problem with violent crime. You want to kill somebody and get away with it, come to Chicago. We got like a 12% clearance rate for homicides. You know, we need to engender some trust between the police and the people that they are, charged with protecting. Mm-hmm. Get them out of them walking beats. Have them getting to know the people by name, the people that they serve and protect. When I was first in Bucktown, we had beat cops. We had CAPS meetings. I knew the guys who were my neighborhood police officers because they walked the beat. You know, I knew. And
you don't see that at all anymore? Is that gone?
I've not seen it. Although, you know what? The police officers in my neighborhood, when I do run into them, are unfailingly polite and kind and responsive. You know, believe me, you call 911 in Bucktown, man, they're there in 90 seconds. I think that what Mayor Johnson could do, his term will have been a success if he can create some trust between the police and the community, between the aldermen, pushing for tax hikes and things like this, and the aldermen pushing for progressive change. You know, if he could create some alliances, some unity, that'd go a very, very long way in Chicago. And I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a guy who's, quite frankly.
Well, you're seeing a guy who brought his first budget to the city council, and it was defeated 50-0, for God's sake. Can you imagine Mayor Daley bringing anything before the city council that he was going to lose even by 3 votes, let alone 50?
No, I don't think Mayor Daley ever lost those kind of votes, And to his credit, I don't think, Richard M. Daley ever lost. They had a way of creating coalitions, and part of that is giving somebody some semblance of some element of what they want, and getting everyone to cooperate and play ball. The art of productive politics, I used to play poker in a game that included Alderman Dick Mell, former Alderman Mell. And, he was an incredibly bright guy. Not always what we would think on the right side of history politically. But he also knew where his bread was buttered. and he pretty much found a way, even after Harold Washington, to get along with people and to get people what they need. And, there was never a hint of this guy ever, grabbing money. I mean, he was rich when he took office. He was from a very wealthy family in Muskegon, Michigan. They made springs for the Army. So, he didn't need petty graft. He was interested in wielding power. I mean, believe me, that's the ultimate aphrodisiac for most aldermen. But I honestly feel like if Brandon Johnson could forge something like cooperation and understanding and reach across to the people who he's at odds with and hold out a hand and say, look, what do we have to do to be able to work together?
He calls himself the collaborative mayor, but it sure doesn't seem, he can call himself that all day long, but it sure doesn't seem that he's not even collaborating with the Progressive Caucus, who is his built-in constituency in the city council. The two of them, I don't know if you saw Eric Zorn's Picayune Sentinel yesterday, but, we just voted on a budget for Chicago, and two of the Progressive Caucus members who voted for the budget used their time with their stand up and give their vote to slam Mayor Johnson. I mean, it was breathtaking what they said about Mayor Johnson. And they're progressives, and they were voting for the budget. And the message was kind of like, look, we're going to vote for this budget, but dude, you better get it together. You better straighten up and fly right. The one that got me the most, Andre Vasquez, when he ended his little voting speech, he said, Chicagoans don't have any more patience for excuses, for hollow, evasive answers, and for obliviousness from their mayor. That's one of his allies.
Yeah, that's some rough medicine. I mean, believe me, I would think Mayor Johnson would get sick of having his ass handed to him. He's going to have to create some kind of unity and some kind of coalitions, or he's in for a rough ride for the rest of his term.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say they make me miss Rahm. Nothing makes me miss Rahm. But, when Biden's term is over, Rahm's going to be back. I don't think he would even attempt to run for mayor. I think he's got his eyes up.
He did an interview with David Axelrod. He was on David Axelrod's podcast, and Axelrod asked him, was he interested in mayor? Was he interested in going back to Congress? Was he interested in going to the Senate? Governor, what? And Rahm said, well, yes to everything and no to everything. He said, I love public service. I'm going to see what's out there. He said, but I also believe that you can be of public service without being an elected official. So he sort of seemed to open the door for, I don't know whether it's a corporate or a nonprofit kind of a world. But, I think what he's doing, he's waiting to see what Dick Durbin's going to do.
Yeah, that, and you know what? I think he's also got his eye on wanting to be the head of the DNC.
He hasn't thrown his hat in the ring, and we've already got Ken Martin and Ben Wickler dueling for that job, but who knows? Yeah. Anything's possible.
Those two guys are about as exciting as a vanilla milkshake, okay?
Rahm would shake things up. And, the good thing about something like that, I think the biggest political mistake of Rahm's life was trying to sit on or cover up the Laquan McDonald story, the Laquan McDonald video. I think any time he is going to run for office again, even if Dick Durbin decides to retire, I think that is going to follow him and dog him for the rest of his life.
And you know what, Joan? It should. It absolutely should. It was unconscionable that he sat on that for 444 days until he was reelected. You know, in his human sacrifices, Alvarez and Chief of Police Gary McCarthy, who I think kind of got screwed in the whole deal.
Yeah, he thinks so too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is something, this was the easiest thing to get out in front of. You know, come out and say, look, this is unacceptable. This child was executed by the police. And, you know, this officer needs to go to jail. You know, I mean, he could have come right out and said that, and he didn't. And I don't, for the life of me, you know what? He's one of the canniest players of politics in the last 50 years. You know, this guy moved two American Democratic presidents to the middle. You know, and I resent him for both times. Bill Clinton, you know, the three strikes law and supporting the death penalty, and President Obama in the continuation of the mindless war in the Middle East. You know, when President Obama did not close Guantanamo Bay day one like he said he would, I thought, you know, we're in for it. And you know, because of Obama, we have the Affordable Health Care Act, and you know what? That insurance kind of saved my life. But, you know, whenever I criticize his presidency, I mention that he saved my life. And then I lament the continuation of a policy of warfare and the drones. This guy killed more people than George Bush. That's hard to swallow, you know. I think, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest president of my lifetime so far has been Joe Biden, you know, who took a wounded republic and got people vaccinated. You know, his first 100 days were heroic. And people now choose to forget that. And they, you know, want to make him out as this doddering, you know. I mean, I would be very surprised if it doesn't come out quickly after President Biden exits office that he's probably suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's or something equally awful, you know. But, you know, when we needed him, the guy was right there, you know. I don't want to think about how many people did not die because of Joe Biden. You know, you don't see refrigerator trucks with bodies in them in New York like you did. You know, I remember walking around. I had a blood infection, and I was walking around the 7th floor of Rush, and I remember looking across, you know, through the glass partition, and there were 7 gurneys with body bags on. And this was during COVID. And, yeah, you don't see that anymore. And I think, you know, Biden went a long way to safeguarding his country.
Yeah, I think he did, too. I think, you know, I mean, with 20/20 hindsight, we can debate whether or not he should have stepped aside after the midterm elections. But, you know, 20/20 hindsight is always gives you a better perspective on things than you otherwise knew about. Tony, we've got to wrap this up. I would hope that sometime before we get too far into the new year, I can come over to your studio. I'd like to sit around and pet some dogs myself.
Come by and pet the dogs, and Michelle will send down a vintage nice bottle of wine for you. And I will be, of course, drinking ginger ale or balloon juice, But, I would love to have you and Ray down.
That would be wonderful. Maybe we'll bring our two dogs so you can have some good dog time too.
Absolutely, bring them. I have treats all day. I have Mother Hubbard, the real healthy ones, and dried beef lung.
Woo! Oh, that's got to be a big hit. Well, Thank you, my friend. I will see you soon. You. Take care.
All right, great talking to you.
Have a great holiday and a great New Year. That is going to do it for me. I am going to take the next couple of weeks off. Hopefully, I will be healthy and get to do some of the fun family activities that I missed the last time around. The members of Congress are taking a vote on the budget bill as we speak. I know never say never, but it does appear that this particular bill, which got a lot of the Democratic desires put back in it, it does look like it's going to pass, at least at this moment in time. Anything can happen, but it does look like it's on its way to passing. Dan Schaefer is sitting in for Patty Vasquez tonight. Tom Nichols from The Atlantic is going to be joining Edwin again tomorrow for The Big Picture, Saturday, 1 to 4. Then William Muck is going to be here Monday for me. I wish you a great holiday. Take care of yourself. Rest up. Have some fun. Because, man, when we come back in January, it's going to be a haul. It is going to be, we got to pace ourselves. Woo! At least until the midterms, until hopefully things get a little bit better. It was 600 some days. I think it's probably something like 628 days. I know it sounds like a lot, but it'll come. It'll come. Take care of yourself and have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. I will see you in 2025. Take care. Goodbye.